Firstly, let's take a look at the handover, in fact, coming in from the Wall Street. When you take a look at the month of April, you do have the S&P 500 that was down by 1.5% thereabout. Dow Jones as well, that also posted a decline of 4.5% thereabout. Nasdaq Composite, that was up 0.5% on the flip side. So that's largely the kind of handover that you had for the month of April. Now, do remember that the S&P 500 briefly entered a bear market on April 7th, made a slight recovery since, but the index, in fact, failed to break through key resistance levels, and a little bit of that is what you saw coming in terms of that 1.5% decline coming in for the month. When you talk about the theme of the month, of course, that was volatility on the back of uncertainty around US President Donald Trump's tariff policies, and that is something that we were looking at. And in terms of what we're looking forward to, then we're looking ahead to the busiest period of the first quarter earnings season, which will see more than 180 S&P 500 companies reporting results. So you do have 4 of the Magnificent 7 as well. The companies that I'm talking about are Amazon, Apple, Meta Platforms, as well as Microsoft, that will be releasing their quarterly reports. You do have heavyweights, the likes of Coca-Cola and even Berkshire Hathaway. So keep an eye on those as well, because those earnings are also on the docket. Other than that, you do have earnings results. In terms of a little bit of background to this, earnings results have been somewhat strong this quarter, with 73% of companies reporting so far, beating analyst estimates. Largely, that is the roundup that you're looking at as far as Wall Street is concerned. But let's move on. Let's take a look at oil prices, because oil prices fell for the week on the back of oversupply concerns, also uncertainty around tariff talks, something between the US and China in terms of the uncertainty. Those were the factors that we were looking at, other than oversupply, which we'll come to a little bit later. But when you take a look at price levels, Brent crude futures gained just about 32 cents, closed around that $66 a barrel mark. When you take a look at US WTI as well, just a 20-cent thereabout uptick, in fact, is what you're seeing coming in as far as US WTI is concerned. So $63 a barrel is the kind of level that US WTI managed to maintain. Brent, in fact, fell more than 1% this week, while WTI also declined more than 2%. So that's why I say helped just sort of maintain that level. Just a little bit of an uptick coming in as far as US WTI is concerned. You do have worries that are growing about excess supply. That is something that we're looking at. Like I mentioned, several OPEC Plus members, in fact, had suggested that the group accelerate oil output increases for a second month in June, according to reports as well. On the moving on, then let's also take a look at gold prices, also falling 2% on Friday, posting a weekly dip, even as far as gold is concerned, as the dollar rose and signs of easing US-China trade tensions. Also something that made it to the list of factors as far as bullion is also concerned, because you do have a report that Beijing has exempted some US goods from its tariffs. That is something that weighed on bullion. So largely that's what you're looking at. Spot gold was down about 1.7% thereabout, near the close, above those levels of $3,200 an ounce, but down nonetheless. And in fact, bullion was down 1.2% for the week as well. So not a strong day coming in on Friday for bullion, and not a strong week either. But moving on, then what's strong at this point is Asia Pacific markets. Let's take a look at the handover that we have at hand as far as Asia Pacific markets are concerned, because you do have the markets largely rising as investors are at this point awaiting further stimulus measures from Beijing. In terms of what is happening in South Korea, like you can see on your screens as well, you do have South Korean index that began the day 1.3% higher. Of course, Shanghai on the flip side is down 0.2%, but it's Kospi that began the day 1.3% higher as well. Moving on, when you take a look at Nikkei, that's the one that added 0.7% thereabout. Australia's ASX 200 also rising 0.7%, and Hang Seng on the flip side, as well as Shanghai, just a little bit of downtick coming in for both of these indices. So Hang Seng, the decline is to the tune of about 0.4%. When you take a look at Shanghai as well, that's also holding on to a tinge of red at this point, 0.2% downtick coming in for Shanghai. Now, in terms of what else happened back home, when we shut shop, we closed above those 24,000 levels last week. But in terms of what we're penciling in a good start at this point, a gap up open, if you will. Let's see how that really pans out for us, because in terms of the handover, of course, you do have the Asian market handover that is slightly strong. But in terms of Wall Street, lots to look forward to in terms of how we open back home.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.